How big of an issue do you think? You don't think that you think Dubai is self-contained? I mean, it's gone away, hasn't it? It's not even in the top news nowadays. They're working through the sovereign, the debt issue. They're working on renegotiating some of the outstanding obligations with their key lenders and all that. This goes away, but what becomes the next issue for the global property markets, David?
Well, I think that you do have some European banks that still have some outstanding exposure in the Gulf and also in Eastern Europe, emerging Europe, where you're going to see some defaults and some issues there. So I wouldn't look to the European banks for a lot of liquidity. But globally, you have a lot of liquidity there in China. You've got a lot still here in the United States that is available in various pockets. So I think that globally, you're still going to be fine. There will be these pockets of unrest like emerging Europe.
You see what's going on out there, David. The doubts persist over the dollar. The Japanese cannot believe, with the state of their economy, that the yen is where it's at. Where is gold? We're at 1,218. There's not a lot of conviction out there, except people do seem to veer towards stuff they can understand, they can identify, and stuff that has a tactile quality that you can touch. Because P&Ls and balance sheets are not well trusted by the populace out there today, are they? But is this leaving the emerging markets unscathed, or is this starting to affect us as well?
Well, I think that you see a lot of emerging markets around the world where there is a lot of value. There are a lot of good hard assets, be it property in Hong Kong or a mine somewhere in Latin America or an asset or a port somewhere else. So there are still a lot of good values in the emerging markets. I think you're right that things on paper are worth a little bit less today than they were 18 months ago. And I think that things that have that you can touch and feel have a lot more value. We're looking for well-valued names that have hard assets, that have exposure to those pockets of liquidity around the world. And Hong Kong property happens to be one of those for the medium term.
You know, in fact, my wife was, she was flabbergasted at the escalation, at the jump in capital values here. Basically, in the last 2.5 years, we've seen an over 130% appreciation in the appraised value of the property, and she put it on the market. Now I've got strangers coming through the house all the time, and I don't really like the thought of moving. As you get older, you know, you just don't like, and you can't absorb a lot of change. But it's really the free money. I mean, they're almost giving away money here. That cannot be a good thing. You know, everybody denies to me that there's a bubble forming. They say there's plenty of demand coming from China, but I see a bubble forming. I've seen this, been here through many, many cycles, and I see it happening again in some way, shape, and form.
Well, you're right. Hong Kong has gone through this boom and bust cycle before, but I think it does have this new source of demand that wasn't there 10, 15 years ago. And I think that that's going to continue. So I think that you've got something developing in terms of asset prices rising. I'm not willing to call it a bubble yet. You're right that there's a lot of liquidity out there and a lot of free money, but that's what the policymakers felt they had to do to recover from where we found ourselves 12 months ago. So I think that Hong Kong property is part of that. I think that China is a big part of that as well.
And how do you leverage that? I mean, if you want to play this game, do you buy the developers? Do you actually buy property? Do you buy a property ETF? There, just like gold, there are many, many ways to get into it. Physical, paper, et cetera, et cetera.
Our clients tend to use listed securities. We prefer Henderson land because of the large land bank that they have in China and in Hong Kong. Also quite a lot of agricultural land on their balance sheet that they can convert over time. So we think that using the listed securities is a fine way to do it, and Henderson land would be our choice.
Okay. David Riedel, San Francisco. Appreciate your time today.